Alright, welcome back to the Crucible Brothers. My name is Lionhearts, and right out the gate, no mincing of words, bows do not have a place in Destiny 2 currently. They are the most out of place weapon in the most need of help of any kind, and today we're going to talk about the weird state of bows in the current sandbox of PvP. There's a lot to get into and a lot of thoughts on this situation, so I'm not going to mince any more words here. Real quick, take a second, like the video, leave a comment because it helps out with the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe if you haven't already. A large majority of our viewers haven't subscribed to the channel. Every time you subscribe, it makes number go up, me do a happy, makes you happy, makes you find our videos more often. So just go ahead and do it, and let's start breaking down the weird wide world of bows. So it may be deep in the past at this point, but cast your mind back about 4 years when Forsaken was first being announced, and Bungie announced the first brand new primary weapon being added to the game since the introduction of SMGs with the switch from Destiny 1 to 2. Now here's the thing, right? Anytime you have a sci-fi game with weird old world technology stuffed in, automatically people are going to be very excited. This is why Space Cowboy is so popular, hence like DMT and all the Tex Mechanica stuff being very popular. And again, anytime you can be big spaceman swinging big sword or shooting giant bow, that is a fantasy that appeals to everybody. So bows were quite hyped up when Forsaken was first announced, and honestly, when we got Forsaken, bows were bad. They were bad for a very long time. The bows introduced were underwhelming. Trinity Ghoul wasn't that good of an exotic. The legendary bows weren't that exciting. They weren't very good in PvP. The hit reg was very dodgy and they had very limited ammo. All around, the launch of bows was kind of a dud. And it wasn't until a little DLC called Black Armory that we got our first hint of a bow that would break the game. And yep, it's everyone's favorite, the congenital war crime committer of the Destiny 2 universe, and that was the introduction of Le Monarque. You see, Le Monarque demonstrates that even though bows have a lot of drawbacks, if you just add on one extremely overpowered aspect, suddenly the bad aspects of bows design come immediately to light. The high damage per shot, the ease of use, the wide hitbox, the then limited but now infinite ammo, and then add on top of it the chemical warfare from Le Monarque, and things get out of hand very fast. Of course, Le Monarque actually went under the radar as a completely broken weapon for almost 2.5 years, but once people figured it out and it gained more popularity and started rising up in usage, we all realized, like, wait a minute, Le Monarque breaks the game in nearly every way and essentially makes sniper rifles default and unusable in high-level games. So, Le Monarque aside for a second, what are the issues with bows as it sits right now? Well, their high damage per shot is augmented by its overall slow time to kill when you factor in draw time between shots. The not quite hit scan projectiles can have very bad hit reg. Drawing and aiming your bow horrifically limits your movement. And finally, despite you doing incredibly high damage per shot, your inability to one-shot without abusing certain stacking damage boosts means most players will take the 150 damage to the dome, immediately run away, and you've effectively done nothing. Which means that overall, bows, outside of a few niche cases, are not good at actually getting kills. They're either assist machines through team shotting, suppressive weapons through lane control, or, and this is the most egregious part to me, used as setup weapons for cleaning up with other weapons in your loadout, i.e. bow swapping. Bow swapping is the only viable playstyle for most legendary bows, and I hate it because bow swapping feels awful to play against. I think it's a dumb playstyle in general, and it really highlights the overall lack of viability of bows, that you need stuff like a quick draw hand cannon or an SMG or a sidearm to clean up all of your kills, because bows are so goddamn inept at getting the kills themselves. Again, the only two bows that have ever had any chance of viability in the meta by themselves have had to break the mold so badly that they could be considered broken in isolation. Le Monarque's damage over time allows it to one-shot, or at least it used to. And in general, damage over time means that you can't re-peek, so it's incredibly impressive in the lane control. And then the other one is the former pinnacle weapon, Hush. And Hush had to have a perk so goddamn broken that it gave it an optimal time to kill in the 0.2s. And even then, most people didn't use it because it required you to use a bow. Keep in mind, okay, follow me for a second. Successful warm-up, introduced in Witch Queen. One of the most broken perks on any weapon that can get it, on fusion rifles, bows, whatever. If you can get Successful Warp, it's a top tier perk, right? Successful Warp is the balanced version of Archer's Gambit. Archer's Gambit on Hush is Successful Warp on precision hit, not kill, which means that you can always crank that Soldier Boy and get that draw time down to minuscule seconds so long as you can hit the dome. Which means that Hush ends up with an average time to kill in like the 0.7s if you have to draw and shoot both shots. But if you come around the corner pre-charged on someone, get the headshot, your time to kill with Archer's Gambit is disgustingly game-breakingly low. And again, even then, Hush was never more than a niche weapon by enthusiasts like me and Gumi, who hardly found viability with it because the weapon was so hard to upkeep. I mean, I have Hush gameplay in the background right now, and I had to fucking chug Red Bulls in between each life just to keep up the crackhead energy necessary to manage Hush and keep it at a high level. This requires an incredibly high level of aim. It's one of the hardest playstyles in the entire game. And if you can nail it, the rewards are disgusting. But when you miss, you're shit out of luck. Alright, so, again, just to establish, the issues with bows. Bow swapping sucks. Bows aren't good at killing people, and bows are clunky and weird to use. How do we go about solving those issues? Well, the problem is, there isn't a good solution. Now, it could be easy to suggest, okay, let's bump bow damage so they one-shot, make them a special weapon, and there you go. But the problem is, if you give bows the ability to one-shot, unless that is range limited, bows will power creep snipers out of the game due to their low zoom and high hipfire accuracy. I mean, can you imagine it? Just getting jiggle peeked by a bow user and just getting instantly one-shot, no sniper glare? That would be miserable to play against. And if you make it range limited, again, it would fall behind to other things in the competition because, you know, Forerunner may not one-shot, but his range is basically infinite. Or why would I use a bow over a sniper at that point? And if it's like, I don't know, like 30, 40 meters, would that be too much? It just seems too hard to balance if bows are special weapons. So if bows remain primary weapons, what do? Do you lower the damage and up the draw time and make them overall faster? Maybe, but then maybe bows become too spammy because of their high damage per shot. Do you make bows give you higher mobility while they're fully drawn? Maybe that could work as a stopgap, but even then I'm not sure. Overall, bows are in this weird spot of doing too much and too little damage to where moving the needle one way or the other could drastically break the game. This is what I mean when I say that bows are out of place in the game right now. Because they're adequate in PvE, they're very good there actually, they've always been fun as a great utility weapon, and stuff like Trinity Ghoul is arguably the best PvE adequate weapon of all time. But when you go into PvP, it just seems like there's no good way to handle this weapon archetype without really throwing the balance off. Again, stuff like Monarque has been a plague for several seasons, and even now it's still one of the most annoying weapons in the game. And bow swapping, especially with stuff like the Oath Keepers on Hunters, can create really annoying insta-kill loadouts with the right primary weapons that feels absolutely awful to play against. The last thing I'll end off here in this video is a bit of an interesting kind of philosophical question, and I'm curious to get your replies in the comments, especially if you watched this far. And that is the question of, should every weapon be viable in a game as big as Destiny? Because obviously, this game has a shitload of weapons, a shitload of archetypes, and keeping everything in balance seems to be kind of a, how do I put it, impossible task. So is it just kind of like acceptable that the majority of weapons are viable, but stuff like bows or 180 hand cannons or 200 RPM scouts kind of just fall by the wayside and end up kind of dilapidating in the corner? Is that kind of like acceptable losses so long as those weapons maybe have viability other places, like again with bows and PvE? Is that maybe an acceptable amount of viability to where maybe Bungie don't have to focus on making bows an equal opportunity weapon? We can just kind of accept that they're weird and niche in PvP, but they're fantastic in PvE. It's honestly pretty interesting to think about, and I don't know where I stand on it, because I'm always of the opinion that more viability is better, especially in the primary sandbox. I want all primaries to feel good and worthwhile if you put in the time to use them, and bows definitely don't meet that criteria right now. So is it better for the game that that's the thing, or do we need bows to come up a little bit? I don't know. I'm going to leave it to you guys in the comments. Make sure you leave a like, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more content coming your way, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.